Thank you very much. Isn't it a great morning? I'm sure you're enjoying it. I was asked, I'm going to ask that the protocols be observed. And I'm really very glad to be here. I was asked 2 days ago, Carol, and I had to accept because MIC has played a very special part in my life and the life of my husband. Research has shown that maybe about 43 years ago in 1974, that MIC was established with a mandate to be a catalyst for developing national technical and vocational competencies. I didn't know the institution at that time. But 20 years later, in 1994, my late husband, Patrick Manning, former Prime Minister, became very passionate about the potential of MIC. It was at that time that the National Skills Development Program, NSDP, was developed, modeling the German-based system of vocational education and training. And again, in the year 2002, I'm sure you would have heard of HYPE and MUST. And those training programs were designed to create opportunities in the technical and construction sectors for young men and women. And it was always a joy for Patrick to attend the graduation ceremonies that took place when these young men and young women in their hundreds would graduate. And he would always repeat the story of how come. And he would go around the country at that time, and there would be a number of young men sitting on the street corners saying, "Sir, we ain't have no work. We have nothing to do. Help us now." And it was that pushed him to begin this new program. And as the program rolled out, there were some names that became household names. Dave Bajan, I don't know if he's here today. Joseph Haynes, Indarjit Tilak Singh, Patricia Allen, and in the later days, Elphys Joseph, Professor Imber, Professor Brian Copeland, and those were just a few. Truly people of excellence, no exception. I've been asked to talk about excellence, no exception. And they were. They worked long and hard and difficult hours. No exceptions. It's not surprising, therefore, that 9 years ago, the professionalization of administrative skills was added to the Institute's program, and MIC began nurturing administrative professionals. And in a program called Unlocking Your True Potential, Your True Professional Potential, Excellence, no exceptions. And in this ongoing program, you, the administrative professionals, you were asked to see yourself in a greater role. You were asked to develop and create your own personal vision. And I listened to our young millennium just now. your personal vision, your personal mission. Your objectives are to inculcate and model positive behavior, especially of successful professionals in Trinidad and Tobago. And the organization for the last 8 years began doing that, exactly that exposure. And I've been told that you've done very well. Congratulations. Thank you for your contribution, not only for yourselves and your respective organizations, but also for the country of Trinidad and Tobago. I appreciate you. And I do so because I too have had dealings with competent, hardworking administrative professionals. And today, as I talk to you, I want to honor Lavina Comerbach. I don't know if those from the Ministry of Education would remember Lavina. Lavina worked with me during my sojourn as a Minister of Government, and she excelled. She created a stable office environment. She resolved conflicts. She was dependable, and she was easy to rely upon. And those were just some of her virtues. So good was Lavina that she accompanied me from ministry to ministry. Because Lavina's success was my success. So in preparing for today's celebration, I did research on MIC. I must tell Carol I didn't sleep last night. That's okay. You see, what I discovered is that 9 years ago, an enthusiastic team consisting of Mr. Keith Toby, Caroline Gopal, and a number of members of MIC began a movement towards the development of the administrative professionals in an environment of technical and vocational strength building. Totally off. A monumental movement away from the emphasis of skills in shorthand and typing, because that's what they did before, bookkeeping. And in a move to now managing and leading offices. And during the 9 years of the existence of this organization, you've begun to blaze a trail so bright that you're now renowned for playing a unique role in the organizations that employ you. A unique role in the development of manufacturing and industry in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, and in the world. So I want to put it to you that because you benefited from the exposure, the 8 years, or 4 years, because there was a little problem in the last 4 years, but because you benefited from the exposure, that you have become complementary to your bosses. That you have been able to create stable office environments. You've been able to resolve conflicts as you work with other people's priorities. You've been able to control what comes into your organization with precision and with commitment. You have made yourself dependable and easy to be relied upon. I take it from me, you have excelled. You are excellent. And as your tagline says, you have been, in that short period of time, unlocking your true professional potential as you are striving towards excellence with no exceptions. And if you do not believe me, ask anyone to compare today's administrative professional with yesterday's secretary. And today, as I keep reading your theme, unlocking your true professional potential, excellence, no exceptions, I realize that there's a need and there's a thirst. You are thirsting to understand simply how to unlock your true professional potential. What to do at this time when the financial crisis of global recession have cut to the very bone and there's a new normal in place. The question inferred is, what strategies could we put in place to unlock your potential and to win the new environment? What could you do to make sure that you're forever excellent? You got a sense of despair. How do we not only survive, how do we thrive to provide excellent service without exception in this new period we call the new normal? How can the organization and its members respond energetically to the economic, the psychosocial, the technological, the legal, environmental, and political changes that have left us in the wake of global financial crisis? How can we influence our members, our bosses, our citizens, our government in this journey, in the new normal, to provide excellence without exception? Is that possible? It's important to understand the concerns, ladies and gentlemen. Let's examine the last 50 years, which have been periods of continuous economic growth, continuous development globally. And research has shown that transformation has been tectonic, caused by groundbreaking advances in science, in technology, in the rise of globalization. In 1970, the financial assets in the world, that the amount of money you use for stocks and bonds, was $250 billion. In 2010, it was $70 trillion. In 2015, it grew to $294 trillion. A lot of money outside there to invest. Between 1965 and 2013, the world's global capital flows grew continuously at 2%. Domestic investment increased, productivity increased, and technology drove productivity. And then you knew what happened? The bubble burst. And a global financial crisis occurred. A crisis that was so devastating between 2007 and 2008, and I'm sure you remember that. You remember when in America they were losing their homes, banks were closing too big to fail, businessmen were killing themselves, committing suicide. There was a global recession, 2008 to 2012, and some people believe that the recession is still going on now. The effects of the crisis cut to the very bone, changing the business landscape forever, making abnormal normal. And it was Ian Davis, the senior partner in the firm McKinsey & Company, who coined the term the new normal. And he noted that the change was so fundamental that restructuring of the economic order had to take place. And while many organizations struggled to survive, many failed miserably. And therefore the world began asking the question, what would normal look like? And there was a marked slowdown in economies worldwide. A call for countries to become innovative, to find ways to thrive, because they believed that in spite of all the trauma, the situation was rich with possibilities. And Ian Davis concluded that whatever the changes, the views were being held that the new normal will consist of less financial leverage, more government regulations, and therefore, one of the most visible outcomes of this period was an increase in technological innovation and a continued rise in the use of human knowledge and human capital. That's where we are now. That's where we are now. And therefore this speaks, interestingly, to the very vision of the MICs to be a catalyst for developing national, technical, and vocational competencies. A sure guide for developing excellence. And so now I ask you, it's brought me to this point where I'm now asking you, the executives, are you prepared and are you preparing your organization to succeed in this new normal? Are you focusing on the new technology, on the human capital, on the skills and the talents that could be found within your organization, and on the needs of your customers, your companies, your industries, your government? And if you are, the result would be an environment which differs from the past, no less rich in the possibilities for those who are prepared to take the gauntlet and excel. Can you do it? Some countries have been doing it. I'm sure you've heard of BRICS. I'm sure you've heard of Brazil and Russia and India and China and South Africa. These are the emerging economies. In spite of how difficult the economic and global environment is, these countries have gone ahead. And today, there's a whole new group called MINT. Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey, emerging, as difficult as the environment is. And I've said all of that to come to ask you. And my question is, as small as we are, what are we doing? Where are we in this global excitement? What could we do to take advantage of the new normal? How could we achieve success? How could we achieve excellence? How could we do that with leaving no one behind? With the new technology and with the rise in human knowledge in that industry, it has been said that how we communicate today has shown that in the United States, in the US in 1980, there were 5 mobile phones for every 1 million people. These are statistics coming out of America. 5 mobile phones for every 1 million. Today there are 90 mobile phones for every 100. And I'm sure that there's no difference in Trinidad and Tobago I'm even wondering if the figures may be a little different because I know many people with 2. But it really talks to the fact that there's a tremendous increase in the internet access, bringing people and business and countries closer together. There's advances in computer and mobile technology, and these have revolutionized communications. Long ago, we communicated by using landlines, by typewriters, copybooks. Today, we use the internet. We research online, not taking days and weeks and months to gather data, but taking minutes to collate data through instant access and instant sharing. At universities, they even now have courses. There's a particular program called analytics, where you just pull the data. It's because it's so easy. Google it. It's as easy as that. Today, there is rapid progress in communications because the technologies have facilitated major innovations in many fields, and this is rapidly changing how we work. As administrative professionals, this is important. This is where they talk about robots taking over. It has helped us to raise productivity. It has led to stronger international trade and financial links. It has helped us to come closer together. Is it helping us to excel? Over the last 50 years, the world's population grew from 2 billion to 7 billion. Imagine having a world market of 7 billion people. In 1970, there were 77 million migrants. In 2016, there were 3 times the amount, 230 million migrants. And labor is moving from country to country. You can hear it, you can hear the accents in the streets of Trinidad. If they're not Spanish, they're from other islands, they're from the mainland, they're from Africa, they're from India, they're from China. Labor is moving, and moving south, developing countries to developing countries a lot of times. And then we have the millennials, and you saw 2 of them in action today. Luke and our fabulous, and I'm not going to pronounce your name. They were born between 1980 and 2000. And I'm sure you have some of them living in your homes. I have one in mine. This generation is making its mark, not only because of its numbers, but because of how they think, because of what they use. You see me here with my old papers? Luke had his little cell phone. Luke was reading his speech from his little iPhone. My lady had none. They're very good at communications media, very good at digital technologies. That's what makes them different. This generation is confident. You saw them in action, assertive, and they feel entitled. You heard her story? Very entitled. And sometimes because of the times, they find it difficult. You heard her story? They found it difficult. Sometimes it's miserable because that's what the new normal does. It's difficult. How many of these millennials are administrative professionals? How many of them think like these 2? And my question is, how are you treating them? Are they being supported to achieve excellence without exception? How could we have excellence with no exception if we're not treating with them? That's the future. We now live in a global village where travel is faster, it's cheaper, it's easier to access countries overseas, where trade grows exponentially, where finance is integrated, countries depend on each other for cross-border movement of goods, of services, of capital, of labor, ideas, culture. We just live together. Technology has done that. We no longer live in isolated islands. We now very sure that no man is an island. And again, I'm asking you, how are you dealing with the impact of the world on your small area, in your little area? How are you, in this excitement that's taking place in the world, what are you doing? How are you achieving excellence as we speak world standards without exception? The World Bank report in 2015 said that many societies had made enormous progress in improving the socioeconomic conditions of a large group of people. In just the last 20 years, 1.2 billion people have been lifted out of poverty. Excellent. However, extreme poverty still exists for about 1 billion people, 14% of the total global population. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we too have our issues. About 14% of our population live in poverty. Inequalities are striking, in many cases increasing. This persistent disparity in social and economic growth has long concerned policymakers, concerned academics, and development practitioners in today's world. And in Trinidad and Tobago, like many other countries, the government in its Vision 2030 has stated that it will minimize the threat of violence and provide security. The government has promised that it will promote prosperity and growth. It would ensure prosperity is shared. It would protect and sustain development for future generations. And again, I ask you the question, what role are you as administrative professionals? What role are you willing to play in improving the quality of life of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? And as I speak to you today, I'm reminded of a saying by a world-renowned marketing guru, Seth Godin. And he said, the world is shifting and there's a new normal available if we have the vision to see what's possible, if we care enough to walk up the stairs instead. And so, I ask you, do you have the vision to see what's possible? Do you care enough to walk up the stairs instead and to go to another level? Is your vision relevant to the tremendous and exciting changes that are driving the world? Is your vision relevant to the journey that Trinidad and Tobago is now undertaking as we, as a country, have to wrestle with the new normal? I tell you, it cannot be business as normal. And my question, again, is how are you going to ensure that there is excellence without exception? I want to challenge you. After 9 years of proven worth, I put it to you that it is your turn now. It is your turn to challenge the new normal, because if you do not, we will all perish. Are you prepared to take up that challenge? As Seth Godin said, do you have a vision? What are you going to do? How are we going to walk up the stairs instead? And he gave us some suggestions. He said that we must ship. You tend to stay safely in your harbor. Are there any new ideas that you have? Are you prepared to move forward as you take your turn? Is your vision of 1974 still relevant? And if it is, what is your message? He said you must speak up. Do you need a new role and do you need new goals? And if you know where you're going, where is your microphone? Where is the TV and the radio and the internet and Twitter and Facebook and FaceTime, the new technology? These instruments open the door. They can help you tell your story and convince others. But are you willing to use the new technology to get your positive message out? Not the negative messages that you see. Positive message. You have the freedom to connect, to make a difference. Use it to the full. Don't speak in a whisper. Speak up. He says you must stand out. You have not lost your voice, you know. You're just a little afraid, living in a little bit of fear to use it. Don't fight that feeling of dread. Acknowledge your fear. Speak it. It is not easy, but stand out anyhow and build a following. He says, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, build a following of faithful followers by providing the music that would enchant them and lead them to paradise. Where are your millennials? Are you positioned to take charge? Market a product. What is unique about what it is you want to do? Find out and market it. Make a connection. Work to connect the dots. Who do you know? Find them. And as Calypso said this year, walk them. Solve an interesting problem. How could I achieve excellence without exception and sustain it? Write, sing, invent, create, ask a question, launch a project, organize a protest, open the door for someone, question authority, make a short film, direct, produce, create, adopt, do something, learn a new skill, help someone who needs you. Be missed if you are gone. It's a terrible thing to go and nobody miss you. Be missed if you are gone. It's your turn to make a ruckus. And may I suggest that you begin the journey to enter the new normal, that you keep in mind that people matter, know the value in people. Know yourself, and we've got good examples today. Know yourself from both speakers. Grow every day. Strive for excellence, always without exception. Embrace failure. Build solid relationships. Stay in your strengths and constantly reinvent yourself. And learn how to have conversations and how to ask great questions. I have just climbed the stairs. What about you? It's your turn now. What are you going to do? Thank you.